Easter morning had arrived with soft sunlight spilling over the rooftops, casting golden hues across the quiet neighborhood of Willowbrook. Families bustled inside their homes. Eggs were being hidden in backyards. Laughter floated through open windows, and the scent of cinnamon rolls and freshly brewed coffee wafted into the streets. Ethan Rivera had always loved mornings like these. A humble mechanic with oil-stained hands and a heart of gold, he spent his Sundays tending to his modest garden or walking through the neighborhood with a thermos of tea. Today, though, something pulled at him, a nudge to take a different route, to leave the house a little earlier than usual. He stepped outside, locking the front door behind him, the quiet chirping of birds his only companion. In one hand, he carried a small bundle of leftover ham, planning to leave it out for the animals he often spotted near the wooded edge of the park. Just a few blocks away, behind a row of trimmed hedges and pastel-painted fences, a stray dog wandered aimlessly. Thin and limping, its ribs visible beneath matted fur, the dog had been surviving off scraps and rainwater for days. Drawn by the scent of roasting meats and sugary treats, it padded toward the street, nose twitching, unaware of the danger ahead. A sudden rev of an engine shattered the peace. A sleek silver car came barreling down the road, tires screeching as it raced past parked vehicles. Inside, Todd Hanley barely glanced at the speedometer. He had somewhere to be, brunch at his sister's estate. His phone buzzed with messages and reminders, none of which he bothered to silence. Then it happened. A soft thud, a yelp. The car jerked slightly, but didn't stop. Ethan heard it first. He turned sharply, his eyes scanning the street until he saw the crumpled shape lying near the curb. Without thinking, he broke into a run, the bundle of ham falling unnoticed to the sidewalk. The dog lay motionless, its breathing shallow, eyes wide with fear and pain. Ethan dropped to his knees beside it, speaking softly, his voice calm and steady. "It's okay, buddy. I've got you. I'm here." The world seemed to slow. There were no horns, no shouting. Just the soft rhythm of the injured animal's breath and the warmth of the morning sun on Ethan's back. He gently slid his hands beneath the dog, mindful not to cause more harm. His heart pounded as he reached for his phone to call the local emergency vet, explaining the situation with urgent clarity. Around the corner, the silver car had stopped. Todd Hanley sat still for a moment, hand gripping the wheel. His brow furrowed as he looked at the streak of fur on his bumper in the rearview mirror. He cursed under his breath, not out of guilt, but annoyance. Someone had seen the man running. Great. This was going to be a problem. He turned the car around slowly, pulling back to the scene, the engine humming like nothing had happened. Ethan didn't look up at first. He was too focused, too careful. Only when he heard the door shut did he glance over his shoulder. "Is that your dog?" Todd asked, feigning concern, though his tone was flat. "No," Ethan replied, cradling the injured pup close. "But you hit it." Todd shrugged. "It ran out. I barely saw it." A young voice interrupted them. A teenager with a phone in hand stood nearby. "I got it on video," she said. "The whole thing." Todd's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak. Ethan nodded toward the girl. "Good thinking," he said gently, still keeping his tone calm. The dog whimpered softly, bringing Ethan's attention back. "I need to get him to the clinic," he said. "They'll take care of him." Todd started to speak again, but Ethan didn't wait. With the dog held protectively in his arms, he turned and began walking down the street toward his truck. As he drove to the clinic, Ethan glanced at the passenger seat where the dog now lay wrapped in a blanket. The animal's eyes fluttered shut, its breathing uneven but still there. Still fighting. Ethan's grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. "Not today." Back at the scene, the teen uploaded the video with a caption. "This man saved a dog on Easter morning after someone hit it and tried to leave. Please help us find the driver." It spread quickly. By the time Ethan arrived at the clinic, the video had already been viewed thousands of times. And in the hours to come, Easter in Willowbrook would no longer be remembered for colored eggs or warm pastries, but for a quiet act of courage, a wounded dog, and a community on the brink of something bigger than they ever imagined. The veterinary clinic was tucked behind a row of maple trees on the edge of town, its windows glowing warmly as Ethan pulled into the gravel lot. The sign out front read Willowbrook Animal Care, with a small heart drawn around a paw print. It was a place Ethan had been to before, often donating supplies or helping neighbors bring in their pets. But this time felt different. He carried the dog inside carefully, wrapped in a fleece blanket he kept in his truck for emergencies. The moment he stepped through the door, the receptionist at the front desk looked up, her eyes widening. "Emergency?" she asked quickly, already rising from her chair. "Yes," Ethan nodded. "Hit by a car." He's still breathing, but barely. A vet tech appeared from behind the counter with a gurney. Together, they gently transferred the limp dog onto it. The receptionist scribbled notes. "Do you know the owner?" Ethan shook his head. "No collar. Stray, I think. But I'll cover everything." She gave him a grateful look before motioning to a small seating area. "We'll do our best. Please wait here." Ethan sat down heavily, the blanket still clutched in his hands. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. A soft instrumental song played in the background, meant to soothe nervous pets and worried humans alike. He stared at the empty gurney as it disappeared through the swinging doors. Time slowed. A television on the wall played local news, though he barely heard it. His mind kept replaying the moment, those screeching tires, the dog's terrified eyes, the sudden stillness. His phone buzzed. It was a message from a friend. "Ethan, is this you in the video? You're trending." Confused, he opened the link. There it was, the girl's video, already spreading on social media. The caption read, "This man saved a dog after it was hit on Easter morning. The driver didn't stop. Share this to find out who he is and make sure the dog gets help." The comments were pouring in. "That poor animal. Who is this hero? I hope the dog makes it. Someone must recognize the car." Ethan didn't think of himself as a hero. He just did what felt right. But seeing the way people were responding, it stirred something inside him. Maybe this little dog had a bigger purpose than anyone could have imagined. The swinging doors opened again. A woman in scrubs, the on-call vet, stepped out. Her name tag read Dr. Landry. She looked kind but serious. "Mr. Rivera?" He stood up quickly. "Yes. How is he?" "We've stabilized him for now," she said gently. "He has a fractured leg, some internal bruising, and signs of previous malnourishment. But the good news is he's a fighter. He's still hanging on." Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "We'll need to keep him for observation," she added. "And if no one claims him, he'll need a foster home during recovery." "I'll do it," Ethan said without hesitation. "I'll take care of him." Dr. Landry's expression softened. "That's wonderful to hear. He's lucky to have found you." As she turned to head back inside, she paused. "Do you want to name him?" Ethan blinked. He hadn't thought of that. He looked down at the folded blanket in his hands, then out the window where the sun was rising higher, casting long beams of light across the clinic floor. "Hope," he said finally. "Let's call him Hope." Dr. Landry smiled. "It fits." Ethan sat back down, this time with a little more peace in his chest. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Hang in there, Hope. You've got a whole world pulling for you now." Just then, the front door chimed again. The teenage girl from earlier stepped inside, holding a warm cup of tea in one hand and her phone in the other. She looked relieved to see Ethan. "I found you," she said softly. "I wanted to make sure the dog was okay." Ethan smiled and gestured to the chair beside him. "Come on in." They sat together in the waiting room, two strangers connected by compassion. "I'm Lily," she said. "Ethan, thanks for filming what you did." She glanced at her phone. "It's everywhere now. People are asking who the driver was. Some are saying he looked familiar, someone from the business district." Ethan hesitated, remembering the man's face. He came back for a moment, said it wasn't his fault. Lily frowned. "But he left again?" He nodded. "Didn't even ask if the dog would survive." She shook her head. "People like that don't deserve to walk away without consequences." Outside, the sun now lit the town in full. Church bells rang in the distance, announcing Easter services. Inside the clinic, though, something more powerful than tradition was unfolding, an act of quiet bravery, a new beginning for a creature left behind, and the start of a ripple that would soon reach far beyond Willowbrook. And in that moment, sitting quietly with a girl he'd just met, Ethan realized something. Hope wasn't just the name of the dog. It was the name of a feeling returning to the town, one that might just change everything. By Monday morning, the video of Ethan and the stray dog had swept through Willowbrook like spring wine through an open field. News outlets began covering the story. Local anchors described it as an act of compassion on Easter morning, and animal welfare groups praised Ethan's bravery. But alongside the praise came questions. Who was the driver? Why hadn't he stopped? And more importantly, would there be accountability? Ethan didn't want attention. He had only wanted to save a life. But now, the spotlight was firmly on him, and on Hope, the injured dog who had begun to stir gently in his sleep during brief visits to the clinic. On Tuesday, Ethan walked into the animal hospital with a bag of fresh blankets, a toy lamb, and a small jar of homemade broth. Dr. Landry greeted him with a calm smile. "He's doing better today," she said softly. "Still not out of the woods, but his vitals are more stable." He even lifted his head a little. Ethan's eyes warmed. "That's all I needed to hear." He stepped into the recovery room where Hope lay on a cushioned bed, connected to and for, his leg wrapped carefully in a splint. The pup's eyes fluttered open as Ethan approached. "Hey there, buddy," Ethan whispered. "You're one strong little soul." He stayed for over an hour, speaking softly and gently petting Hope's head, unaware that outside, more eyes were turning toward Willowbrook, and not all of them were kind. At the local cafe that afternoon, Ethan sipped coffee with Lily, the teen who had posted the video. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages and reposts. A small fundraiser she'd started had already reached $2,000 to help cover the vet bills. "He looks better today," Ethan said, smiling faintly. "More alert." "I'm so glad," Lily said. "People keep asking when he'll be strong enough to go home." "Soon, I hope." They sat in thoughtful silence until Lily leaned forward. "I've been thinking about the driver. Someone online thinks they recognized him, Todd Hanley. Owns a few businesses downtown. Drives a silver sports car. Same kind in the video." Ethan stirred his coffee slowly. The name sounded familiar. Hanley had a reputation. Flashy, successful, and used to getting his way. Not someone known for taking responsibility. "I'm not sure I want to get into a fight," Ethan admitted. "But someone needs to say something." Lily nodded. "You don't have to fight. Just tell the truth. Let the video speak for itself." Later that evening, the story took a new turn. The local news featured a new segment, Community Rallies Around Stray Dog Hid on Easter Morning. The piece showed footage of Hope, covered in a soft blanket, and a short interview with Dr. Landry about his progress. Then came a clip of Ethan, filmed outside the clinic, speaking gently but firmly. "I didn't know him. I just saw an animal in pain and did what I thought anyone would. I didn't know people would care so much. But maybe it's time we all care a little more." The station also aired a still image of the silver car caught in Lily's video. A few viewers recognized the vehicle. Tips started coming in. By Wednesday, local authorities had received enough information to investigate. A community officer paid Ethan a visit to gather a formal statement. "He hasn't been charged yet," the officer explained, "but this is being taken seriously. Witness testimony, video evidence, it all helps." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I don't want revenge. I just want him to understand what he did." The officer nodded, respecting the weight of Ethan's words. That evening, Ethan returned home to find a small envelope on his doorstep. Inside was a handwritten card. "Thank you for reminding us what kindness looks like. Your neighbors." Underneath was a small drawing of a dog and a heart. Ethan smiled and pinned it to the fridge. For the first time in days, the ache in his chest softened. Meanwhile, at the edge of town, Todd Hanley sat in his office, scrolling through comments and emails. Some clients had pulled back on contracts. His assistant had quit, and his phone kept ringing with reporters requesting a statement. He had expected the storm to pass, but it wasn't passing. The community had spoken, and this time, people were listening. And just a few blocks away, in the warmth of the clinic's recovery room, Hope slowly drifted into sleep, unaware that the world around him was beginning to change. Not because of loud protests or angry shouting, but because one man stopped, one girl filmed, and a town decided that compassion still mattered. By the end of the week, Willowbrook had transformed. What began as a single act of kindness on Easter morning had become a quiet, powerful movement across the small town. In shop windows, handwritten signs appeared with messages like "Hope lives here" and "Kindness matters." Photos of the little dog wrapped in his blanket, along with Ethan's quiet heroism, were posted at the local library, the school bulletin board, and even the town hall entrance. Hope had become more than a dog. He had become a symbol. At the animal clinic, visitors began stopping by with donations: dog food, soft blankets, chew toys, even handmade collars. Children dropped off get-well cards decorated with paw prints and glitter. Some left small dog figurines or stuffed animals by the front desk. Ethan came every afternoon to sit with Hope, who now lifted his head and wagged his tail slightly whenever he heard Ethan's voice. The bond between them had deepened with every visit. Dr. Landry smiled as she checked Hope's vitals. "He's responding beautifully. Healing slow but steady." You gave him a reason to fight, Ethan. Ethan knelt beside the bed and ran a gentle hand along Hope's back. He gave me one too. Back in town, Lily and her friends organized a small community event, a candlelight walk through the park called Steps for Hope. It was set for Saturday evening, with the intention of raising awareness for animal welfare and celebrating the power of compassion. Flyers spread quickly. The mayor even agreed to say a few words. Local musicians volunteered to play soft acoustic music. A bakery promised to provide treats, and volunteers from the shelter would be there to talk about pet adoption. Ethan was hesitant to attend at first. "I'm not used to being in the spotlight," he admitted to Lily over a cup of tea at the cafe. "You don't have to speak," she replied gently. "Just be there. Let people thank you. They want to share something good, for once." He nodded slowly, understanding. This wasn't about ego. It was about community. On Saturday evening, the park was bathed in golden light as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Dozens of families gathered, many with their dogs in tow. Children held little battery-powered candles. Some wore shirts that read, "Team Hope," designed by Lily's art class. Ethan stood quietly near the gazebo, watching as people arrived. A woman approached him with her young son, who held a small card in his hand. "Mr. Rivera?" she asked softly. "My son wanted to give this to you." Ethan knelt down and opened the card. Inside was a drawing of a dog with angel wings and the words, "Thank you for saving him." Ethan smiled, touched in a way he didn't know how to express. As the event began, the mayor stepped up to the gazebo and looked out at the crowd. "This past week reminded us of something we often forget," he said. "That the smallest actions, a man stopping on the side of the road, a girl with a camera, a town that chooses to care, can make a difference. Tonight, we walk in honor of hope, and in honor of the hope that lives in each of us." The crowd began to walk slowly along the path that circled the park. Soft guitar music played, and a warm breeze stirred the spring blossoms overhead. Ethan walked near the front, with Lily beside him. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. As the path curved toward the lake, a gentle cheer rose from the back of the crowd. Dr. Landry was there, with Hope. She wheeled him in a special cart padded with pillows. His bandaged leg rested comfortably, and his eyes sparkled in the fading light. The moment the little dog saw Ethan, his tail thumped against the cushion. Ethan stepped forward, kneeling beside him. "Hey there, buddy," he whispered. "You made it." Hope licked his hand softly, as if to say, "So did you." The crowd clapped quietly, then fell into peaceful silence as the walk continued. Later, under the soft glow of lanterns strung between the trees, people shared stories of their own rescued pets. A local girl recited a poem she had written for Hope, and volunteers signed up to foster animals from the local shelter. The evening closed with a song played on acoustic guitar, titled "A Place Called Hope." The lyrics spoke of second chances, quiet bravery, and the love we don't always expect, but always need. As the stars began to shimmer above Willowbrook, Ethan sat on a bench near the lake with Hope nestled beside him. The little dog had drifted off to sleep, his breathing slow and calm. Lily approached with 2 cups of warm cider. "Do you think he knows?" she asked, handing him a cup. "How many people love him now?" Ethan smiled. "I think he knows exactly what he needs to. He's safe. He's home." Across the water, reflections of the candles danced like flickering memories, reminders that even in the quietest places, kindness could echo far and wide. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan felt it again. Hope, alive and well, and here to stay. The Monday after the candlelight walk, Willowbrook's town hall buzzed with quiet anticipation. Word had spread that a hearing would be held to review the Easter morning incident, the hit-and-run involving the stray dog. Though not a formal trial, the session would allow witnesses to speak and evidence to be reviewed before deciding on possible charges. Ethan hadn't planned to attend. He didn't enjoy confrontation, and he had never been inside that chamber before. But as he stood outside the animal hospital that morning, saying goodbye to Hope before heading to work, he noticed something in the dog's eyes. A look of calm trust, as if to say, "Go. I'll be right here." By noon, Ethan was seated quietly in the back of the town hall, dressed in a simple sweater and slacks. He wasn't there to make a statement. He simply wanted to be present. The room was filled with neighbors, reporters, and curious townsfolk. In the front row sat Lily with her parents. Next to them were Dr. Landry and a few volunteers from the animal shelter. The atmosphere was respectful, but charged with unspoken emotion. Todd Hamley entered late, dressed in a tailored navy suit. His eyes scanned the room quickly, and when they landed on Ethan, they flickered with something, perhaps discomfort, perhaps something else. He took a seat beside his attorney and folded his hands tightly in his lap. The proceedings began with a calm voice, a local council member overseeing the session. "We're here to listen, to gather the full truth," she said. "Let's remember, this is not about vengeance. It's about responsibility." The room nodded in quiet agreement. Lily was the first to speak. Her voice trembled slightly, but she stood tall. "I didn't film the video to hurt anyone. I saw something wrong, and I thought people should see it." She handed over a printed still from the footage, a silver car speeding away, a limp body in the road, and a man running toward it. "Ethan!" Gasps murmured through the room, even though most had seen it already. Seeing it here, enlarged and official, gave it new weight. Dr. Landry spoke next. She described Hope's injuries with clinical precision, her voice calm but steady. The dog suffered multiple fractures and severe internal bruising. If he hadn't received immediate care, he wouldn't have survived. Then, a pause. "I've worked with strays for over 15 years. I've seen cruelty, yes, but I've also seen healing, miraculous healing. What Ethan Rivera did that morning, it changed more than just one life." Ethan was called next, though he hadn't expected it. He rose slowly and walked to the front. "I didn't see who was driving. I didn't care. I only saw a living creature in pain," he said. "But if someone hurt him and didn't stop, then I believe they should be held accountable. Not punished harshly, just asked to look honestly at what they did." He paused. "Sometimes doing the right thing starts with admitting the wrong." His words settled over the room like a soft wind. There was no anger in his tone, only quiet conviction. When Ethan returned to his seat, Todd Hamley was called forward. He didn't speak right away. His attorney leaned in and whispered something, but Hamley shook his head slightly. Then, with visible discomfort, he stood and walked to the front of the room. "I wasn't paying attention that morning," he said. "I thought I hit something, but I didn't stop. I was distracted, late for a meeting." A ripple moved through the audience. "I didn't expect this to become what it did," he added. "But I also didn't expect to see my name in headlines for leaving a dog in the road." He swallowed hard. "I'm not proud of what I did, and I don't expect applause for admitting it. I'd like to make it right, if there's a way." The room sat in silence. No one clapped. No one jeered. The councilwoman finally spoke. "Mr. Hamley, we appreciate your statement. While your actions caused harm, your willingness to acknowledge them matters. We will proceed with a fine, mandatory community service and a donation to the Willowbrook Animal Fund." A soft murmur of approval spread across the room. The consequences were fair, measured, not vengeful. But then, she added something unexpected. "We also ask that you join the animal shelter every weekend for the next 3 months, and that you attend one of our outreach programs on responsible care and empathy toward animals." Hanley hesitated, then nodded. After the session, people slowly began to leave. Outside, sunlight bathed the steps of the hall. Ethan stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, watching the crowd. Hanley approached him, cautiously, like a man enused to humility. "I owe you something," he said. Ethan shook his head. "You owe it to him." He nodded toward the photo of Hope on a nearby flyer. "Not to me." Hanley glanced at the image, then gave a small nod. "I'll do better." Ethan believed him. Not fully, but enough. That evening, as the wind rustled through the trees and Hope drifted into a peaceful nap at the clinic, Ethan sat on his porch, the weight of the day settling softly on his shoulders. Justice, he realized, didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered. Sometimes it came in quiet acts, gentle truths, and second chances. Spring deepened in Willowbrook. The cherry blossoms that had barely begun to bloom on Easter Sunday were now in full, fragrant display. The town felt different, not just because of the weather, but because something had shifted. People smiled more easily. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years were suddenly chatting in the grocery store. And at the heart of it all was one small dog and the man who had stopped to save him. Hope had healed remarkably. It had been nearly 5 weeks since the accident, and with his leg now fully mended and his energy restored, he was no longer the frail pup wrapped in blankets. He was bright-eyed and eager, trotting beside Ethan during their daily walks through town. Everyone recognized them. Children waved from playgrounds. Shopkeepers stepped outside just to say hello. And at the animal shelter, where Ethan now volunteered every weekend, Hope was something of a local mascot. On one particular Saturday morning, Ethan arrived at the shelter with Hope on a blue leash. A group of school children had gathered with sketchbooks to draw the famous little dog as part of a classroom project. Hope sat proudly, tail wagging as the kids admired him. "He knows he's a star," Lily said, appearing beside Ethan with a grin. Ethan chuckled. "I think he just likes the attention." Lily handed him a folder. Inside was a collection of letters, handwritten by children from all over the county. Some thanked Ethan for saving Hope. Others told stories of their own rescued pets. A few even included drawings of dogs with little capes, labeled Super Hope. Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. "Can I read these to him?" he asked softly. Lily smiled. "I think he'd like that." Later that day, as Ethan sat beneath a tree in the park with Hope resting in the grass beside him, he opened the letters one by one and read them aloud. One said, "Dear Mr. Rivera, I was scared of dogs until I saw what you did. Now I want to help them too." Another read, "Hope is brave. You are too. I hope I can be like you someday." Each word touched Ethan more deeply than he could explain. Because they weren't just about him or the dog, they were about something bigger. About a town rediscovering its heart. About strangers becoming neighbors again. As the sun began to dip behind the hills, casting golden light across the park, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the path. Todd Hanley. He approached slowly, carrying a box under one arm. He looked different, tired, yes, but softer somehow. "Hey," he said. Ethan nodded in greeting. "Hey, I brought something," Todd added, kneeling down to open the box. Inside was a handcrafted wooden plaque. On it were the words, "In honor of Hope, whose name reminds us that kindness is always the better road." Beneath the inscription, it read, "Donated by Todd Hanley." "I made it myself," he said. "For the shelter wall." Ethan took a moment before responding. "It's beautiful." They sat in silence for a while, watching Hope chase a fluttering leaf, his movements full of joy and freedom. "You know," Todd said eventually, "I used to think success meant being first, being the loudest, being right. But now I think maybe it's more about being human, owning your mistakes, and trying to be better." Ethan nodded. "That's a good start." Todd smiled. "Thanks for not hating me." "I never did." That night, Willowbrook held a quiet ceremony at the shelter. The plaque was mounted on the wall above the entrance. Candles flickered gently, casting soft shadows across the room. People spoke, not in speeches but in small, heartfelt moments. Stories. Laughter. A few tears. Hope wore a small blue ribbon around his collar, and every time someone petted him, he wagged his tail like it was the best moment of his life. When the gathering ended, Ethan stood outside beneath the stars with Lily. "You ever think about keeping him?" she asked, nodding toward Hope. Ethan looked down at the little dog who had changed everything. "I already have," he said. Hope looked up at him with shining eyes, then leaned gently against his leg. It wasn't a dramatic ending. There were no fireworks, no applause. Just a quiet street, a gentle wind, and two souls who had found each other when they needed it most. The town would remember what happened that Easter Sunday, not because of the accident, but because of what followed. Kindness, accountability, healing, and hope. Not just the dog, but the feeling. Alive in every corner of Willowbrook, where one small act changed many lives and reminded everyone that even the most ordinary days can become extraordinary.